Couple things you'll need is a rear stand for your bike, and then a brush like this. You don't have to have one like this. You can have an old toothbrush. This just makes it a lot easier, goes a lot quicker. I also like to have some spare rags in case I want to wipe up some of the crap that slings off. So by far the best way to clean your chain is to use gin. I found this works really well. Definitely the more expensive the gin, the better it cleans. And you'll just open it up, start pouring on the chain like this. Definitely don't use gin, that would be retarded. I like to use kerosene. Kerosene is what's recommended in the manual, and I found that it definitely cleans the best. You can get a gallon of this at like a hardware store or Lowe's or something for around 10 to 15 bucks, so it's pretty cheap. And I've used this maybe about 7 or 8 chain cleanings, and I'm not even halfway down, so it lasts a while. I also like to use just a bottle like this. You could use a water bottle, and then I poke a hole in the top and then fill this up with kerosene. What I use to lube is white lithium grease and this stuff right here. Now this stuff right here you can get off of Amazon. There's other stuff very similar to it. I found this stuff is like really sticky, like sap, so it's really hard to clean off when it slings onto your rim, and it actually kind of binds up your chain if all you use is this. So what I like to do is use a spray of this, then this, a small amount of this, and then come back with the white lithium grease. So when you're doing this, a lot of times the kerosene can sling around and get all over your fairings. I don't really like that when that happens. Just get the chain nice and wet with the kerosene. So that's looking pretty good. You can tell it's pretty clean. Doesn't have to be completely spotless, but you can see I used about maybe a cup or two of kerosene, so not that much out of a gallon. And the chain's pretty clean right now. What I like to do is just let it dry a bit, get a paper towel that doesn't shed a lot, that you can throw away, and just wipe down as much of the kerosene off as you can. What I love about kerosene is it's kind of like a slow burning fuel that has some oil in it, so it's safe for your O-rings, it's easy to wipe off, and it doesn't screw up your paint or anything. And it's really good at getting in there and soaking up the grime and getting it off the chain and the sprocket and everything, and just cleaning. And then it evaporates pretty quick, so right now I'm about ready to start lubing. If you just spray it on the outside here, yes, you do need some grease on the outside, but most of that's just going to sling off. If you do it from the inside, it'll work its way out. So I like to start on this side and then switch to this side. Looks pretty good. Next, I like to just come back with this stuff and do a really thin coat of this right where the O-rings are. Once you've lubed the chain, I like to come back and do a second light coat of white lithium grease and kind of just make sure I get all the edges. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just make sure and bolt up the fairings if you took any off, and you know, take it for a spin and see how it feels. This is also a great time to just check how tight your chain is. Generally, with most bikes, you want about an inch of travel. Mine has about an inch and a quarter, which is fine. It's better to have it a little loose than too tight. You never want to have it too tight, because then it'll strain the chain, and you'll have tight spots, and then you'll just have to replace the chain. I did that on the chain that was on here before the Also, another thing, if you get your chain too tight, when that really matters is when you're going around a corner and there's a lot of gravity and pressure on this. The swing arm will back up and there will be more tension on the chain, and if you don't have enough loose play in it, you can seriously bend it and really stress your chain out. That's why it's always good to have, you know, an inch to an inch of half of just free play. This right here is definitely not too tight. You want it to be a little loose like this. Also, check in your service manual, your user manual. A lot of times bikes are supposed to be cleaned, the chain, every 500 miles. I know on my GSXR and my R6 it said to clean the chain every 500 miles. And what I like to do is I have a trip A and a trip B odometer, and so I can set it to the trip B, and I reset that every time I clean the chain. That way I know when I need to clean the chain next. If you ride a lot in the rain, definitely clean your chain frequently, because after every time it rains, as soon as water touches this, because it's steel, it'll start to rust and get corrosion on it. Now if you clean your chain regularly, you don't really have to worry about that. I personally pretty much never ride in the rain unless I'm caught in it at some point, and I always keep my bike indoors, so I don't have to worry about that too much. But rain is pretty bad for the chain, and so as soon as water gets on it, it starts to corrode. So if you ride a lot in the rain, it's best to keep up your chain.